Now, sadly, it's one misfortune after another for the Caribbean island of Haiti. 3 days ago, the country's southwest region was rocked by an earthquake that killed at least 1,400 people. Well, now, as doctors struggle to treat thousands of injured Haitians in makeshift hospitals, they're being lashed by a tropical storm. The city of Lashing was the epicenter of the quake and is the most badly hit. There are scenes of despair everywhere and a desperate need for outside assistance. Aid agencies tackling the aftermath of the quake say rescue efforts have been severely hampered by the storm that's drenched the country overnight. And most dire is the situation in the southwest region. At least 25 health centers, possibly more, have been destroyed, and many remote parts of the region affected by both the earthquake and the storm haven't yet been accessed by rescue workers. Well, for analysis of what's happening in Haiti, I'm joined now by Michael Mosselmans, head of the Humanitarian Division at Christian Aid, one of the aid agencies operating in Haiti. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. What's first of all, the latest on the storm Grace, which is battering the parts of Haiti already affected by the earthquake? We're hearing of scenes of despair there.
Oh, that's right. There's been very heavy rains last night in Haiti caused by Tropical Storm Grace, including in the areas of Lake and Jeremy, like you were saying, which were badly affected by the earthquake on Saturday morning. And it's actually because the very heavy rains and storm impacted Haiti last night. It's still a bit early for us to have clear information and data about exactly what the impacts of that are. That'll emerge in the coming hours and days, but it's compounded the challenges of the very big earthquake that happened there on Saturday morning. And as you say, Haiti is wrecked by many different challenges at the same time. There's obviously COVID, which makes everything very difficult in Haiti, as in many other places. But on top of that, there's significant political unrest following the assassination of the president a month ago, and access to the affected areas in the south, in Jeremy and Lake is difficult because gangs are controlling some of the main roads that enable one to access those areas. So the UN is using boats to get some supplies to people in need, and 19,000 people have been displaced by gang violence since the assassination of the president a month ago. And as you say, in this earthquake, 7,000 people are injured, as well as the 1,400 people who've died, and 37,000 houses have been destroyed, and 75,000 people are left homeless in the south region. So there's a lot of work for the aid agencies to do in difficult conditions, hampered by security constraints, by the tropical storm, and by COVID.
And of course, most people forget. I'm assuming that Christian Aid has been there for the long haul and isn't just going in there now. People sort of forget that aid agencies themselves become the victims of the conditions inside the country. How have your people been coping there?
That's right. We work through local Haitian civil society organisations. The main ones that we're working with in the regions of Lake and Jeremy, which were worst hit by the earthquake, are Chorale and Service Jésuite aux Migrants. And yes, obviously their people on the ground themselves are affected by the earthquake and by the tropical storms. And as you say, that makes it doubly difficult to deliver assistance. Fortunately, Christian Aid's own people are based in the capital, Port-au-Prince, and that was 75 miles away from the epicenter of the earthquake, so they themselves weren't hit. Their houses were not. But some of our partners working in the region, obviously, some of their staff themselves are affected by the earthquake and the storms. But you're right. We've been, as you say, Christian Aid, alongside many other agencies, has been in Haiti for a long time. And in 2010, as you know, there was a massive earthquake in Haiti which left 300,000 people dead, and in 2016 there was a massive Hurricane Matthew, which affected 2 million people. So Haiti's been hit by a succession of disasters, and for its long-suffering people.
So, I mean, in terms of the order of priority at the moment, what would you say is most urgently needed there? Because, I mean, we've heard of, shelter for people. We've heard of sort of medical help and so on. What, in the pecking order of priorities, what would be top of the list?
Yeah, I think the three things that are most badly needed immediately are health, water and shelter. After the 2010 earthquake, there was a serious cholera outbreak in Haiti owing to people not having access to clean water, and so there are concerns to prevent that happening again in this situation. So clean water is a high priority. Obviously, shelter for the 75,000 people who've been left homeless by the earthquake, and then healthcare for the 6,900 people who have been injured. Hospitals are quite obviously struggling to, and health centres are quite obviously struggling to cope with the volume of demand, particularly since some of the hospitals and health centres themselves have been ravaged by the earthquake and then by the tropical storm.
And I mean, this storm, one of the things that we're hearing, I mean, the picture is so grim, it just beggars belief. But the arrival of the storm apparently left tens of thousands of families whose homes had already been destroyed by the earthquake, apparently with no shelter, and they're having to ride out the storm in the open.
No, that's right. I was told by the head of the UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Haiti a couple of hours ago that 75,000 people have been left out on out in the open because their houses and shelters have been knocked over by the earthquake, and then they face this extremely heavy rain from Tropical Storm Grace. So yes, appalling conditions for those 75,000 people.
I think you touched on this earlier, but of course this tropical storm and the earthquake only compound the problems of poverty and political turmoil in a country already reeling from the assassination of their president last month.
No, that's exactly right. So Haiti faces a kind of quadruple whammy of political turmoil, earthquake, tropical storm, and COVID, and so yes, it's a very sad place at the moment. You're absolutely right, and the insecurity caused by the political turmoil means that it's difficult for aid agencies to reach the people in need, let alone the tropical storm and the earthquake, and even before the earthquake and the tropical storm, everybody was very concerned about hunger in Haiti. There's severe food insecurity, and many thousands of families are affected by hunger and not knowing where their next meal is going to come from. And then they're ravaged by these two disasters, one on top of the other. So it's a difficult moment for the island.
So, I mean, in those circumstances, I mean, you're the head of the humanitarian division as Christian Aid. Christian Aid, of course, a global aid agency. I mean, the challenges for you must be enormous. I mean, tell us about the work that Christian Aid is doing in Haiti and has been doing, and what you're doing there now.
Yeah, well, I mean, traditionally, one of the key things that we've trying to help with in Haiti is with migrants on the Haiti-Dominican Republic border and people being sent out of the Dominican Republic and living close to the Dominican Republic border and being in poverty and needing support. But then we did an enormous amount of work after the earthquake, because so many people were left homeless after the earthquake in 2010, and then there was Hurricane Matthew, where we raised £2 million from our churches in the UK and Ireland to help the victims of Hurricane Matthew, mainly with shelter and clean water that they needed when their houses were knocked over by Hurricane Matthew 5 years ago. And then what we're doing now with the earthquake compounded by the tropical storm, we've got 2 partners on the ground, as I say, Corral and SJM, and they are looking to provide first aid, shelter, clean water, support for livelihoods, and psychosocial support to help people with the emotional trauma of the situation and people who've lost their loved ones. So we work through local civil society partners, but those are our key priorities for the immediate aftermath of the earthquake. I mean, because it's quite early days, because the earthquake only struck on Saturday morning, obviously they're still working out what the most severe needs are, who the most vulnerable people are, and how best to help them, and talking to people to find out how best we can help. But we've set up an appeal on our website, christianaid.org.uk. So we're hoping to raise money from our supporters in the UK and Ireland to be able to invest in our partner civil society organisations in Haiti to help the people in need. And we've also released from our own emergency funds early support to kick off rapid action whilst we gather additional funding from our supporters in the UK and Ireland.
Well, thank you very much indeed for that update. Michael Mosselmans is head of the Humanitarian Division at Christian Aid, which is one of the aid agencies working in Haiti.